Hello everyone, I am Tessellating Hexagons, and yesterday, Albania chose their entry for this year's Junior Eurovision Song Contest. Yeah, I know, it's June, it should be the month where I care the least about Eurovision, because, we've just had adult Eurovision, and now we're just diving straight in with the Junior Contest, but I have said in the past, I take the Junior Contest seriously, and I think it's high time that everybody else did as well, so I'm going to start reviewing the Junior Contest songs, treating them exactly the same way that I would with adult Eurovision songs, and so, next day review. Yesterday Albania chose their song. Now, normally, I would have Europescalowate co-review the songs with me, but unfortunately she's unwell at the moment, so I'm letting her have the day off, so I'll just record this without her, but she has sent me some notes talking about her opinions on the song, so she will still have some input in this video. She's just not here live this time, but we'll see for the next country, but for the moment, Albania has chosen the incredibly talented Klesta Qehaja. I think I pronounced that right. I'm not sure how the letter Q is pronounced in Albanian. I apologise if I mispronounce. And the song Besoj, which, of course, in keeping with Junior Eurovision rules, is completely in Albanian, although it could be up to 75% in Albanian, but it's completely in Albanian, and it translates to trust in English, I believe. I'm not an expert in the Albanian language. Now, my personal first impressions of this song, well, on the day it was chosen, I was actually kind of busy doing a whole load of other stuff, so I didn't get to hear it straight away. But I was warned during the live stream that I was doing at the time that it was a ballad and it was reminiscent of Ronan Nishliu's Suis from the Adult Contest of 2012, and I was never a huge fan of that song, so I was slightly nervous about what Albania had chosen. But, having heard the song, okay, I suppose I can kind of see why someone would make that comparison, but it's not the first thing that would come to my mind personally. Yeah, there are some similarities in terms of the power of the voice, but overall, I think it stands on its own. What I do hear for definite, though, is a truly emotional ballad sung by a voice that's pretty when it wants to be and incredibly powerful when it has to be. Now, for a singer to be so young and yet to have that much control over her voice, that's very impressive. So, what do we like about this song? We, of course, being myself and Europescalowate, but as I said, she's not here because she's not well. But first of all, what do I like about the song? What are the good points? As I just said, Klesta has an absolutely phenomenal voice. If she's this talented now, just imagine where she'll be in, 10 years with enough practice and experience. She's incredible now, and she's gonna be amazing when she gets older. As far as I can tell, her national final performance was absolutely flawless. So, not only can she hit those high notes in the studio, but she can also hit them live, under pressure of it being a contest, and with as much conviction as you like. I'll admit, I don't speak Albanian, but the lyrics do sound really sincere, and she delivers them with so much believability and raw power and conviction and sincerity, and just wow. As far as the instrumentation goes, I like how it has classical elements. As per the rules of Festivali Këngës për Fëmijë, I think it's called the Junior Festivali Këngës, I think the rules say it has to be performed by an orchestra, and then they'll fix it later if they want to. I don't know what the rules are. But one way or the other, the classical elements, the orchestra, is incorporated very, very well, so it doesn't just sound like another classical-inspired piece. And it's helped in that ever so slightly by, as far as I can tell, I think it does have a small amount of non-classical instrumentation in there as well. I can't quite identify it, I can't quite pin it down, but I think there's one point in the song at the very least that features what sounds like some kind of electronic instrument that you wouldn't see in a classical orchestra. I don't know, but I like it. Bonus points as well for how this song translates really well into a stage performance, and by that, I mean when it comes to choreographing this one for the Junior Eurovision stage, less is more. It won't take much to really sell this one, is what I'm trying to get at here. Perhaps just a little more than what she had at the selection process. Small, refined steps as far as choreography goes, nothing too huge. So, just a few steps just to make sure she's not standing there the whole time. Maybe a couple of subtle hand gestures to really drive home what she's saying, to emphasize, to mark the important lyrics. Stuff that Conchita did in 2014 for Austria. That kind of idea. And an elegant costume, and a background behind her that lends itself to the song without demanding or stealing your attention. Now, I don't know about the Junior Contest, but as it is, with what I just said and the song as it is, this could go a hell of a long way in adult Eurovision, so very well done, Miss Qehaja, if I'm even saying your surname right, I apologise, but still, very nicely done. Now, Europescalowate's notes on what she likes about the song, she's said that while it might be a ballad, it's a ballad performed very well, because ballads as a genre tend not to be as engaging as upbeat pop songs, which, of course, will tend to do well in the junior contest, because it's a song contest for kids, so they're less likely to go for ballads, but this is a very, very well-executed ballad. As well, her voice really, really fits the song, or with the asterisk that it fits the song in its current form, because they might revamp it down the line, because Albania is fond of revamping their Eurovision songs, both adult and junior, which could really work in their favour like it did in 2015, or not so much in their favour like it did in 2012, although Europe's albeit does note that the junior Eurovision version of their entry in 2012 was a lot better than the national final version, but it just felt like her live vocals weren't quite as good. But that was 2012. And Laura also agrees with me on the front that it really does sound like Klesta really, really believes in what she's singing. So she ticks a lot of the right boxes, apparently. Now, what don't we like quite so much about this song? Well, Europe's albeit notes that there is a possibility that the song may get swallowed up by stronger entries depending on where it's put in the running order because, as we've noted, it's a ballad. If it's surrounded on either side by upbeat pop songs or songs of adequate bluster, then it could get swept away because it's simple and elegant, which may not stand up depending on what it's up against. She also notes that it does sound very Festivali Femieva. I think that's the name of the junior Festivali Kungas, because of course it had to be written to the specifications of the rules of the national final, so it may be somewhat restricted in that sense, but it does open the door for a revamp, which, as we've pointed out, may work in its favour and may count against it. We have yet to see. Laura also makes note of there is an awkward moment, or what she describes as an awkward moment, where everything kind of stops for a second. I think it's between the first chorus and the second main verse, where the song kind of comes to a stop and then starts again. Nowhere near as dramatic as the pause between the words sun and light in Ireland's Eurovision entry this year, but it's almost like that. As for what I have to say with regards to quote-unquote bad points, well, there isn't much I can fault this song on, personally, and what I can criticise isn't really that much of a big deal, in all honesty. I do agree with Laura in that spot between the first refrain and the second verse, it does feel like the pause before the song continues is just a little bit too long, but maybe that's just me. I mean, I feel like that might be a little bit tricky to stage, especially if the camera just lingers on her and she stands there doing nothing just for that little pause in the song. If that gap were a little bit smaller, then it would be easier to work with, but as I said, maybe that's just us. Maybe we're overreacting. But it may also trip Klesta up if she misses her cue to resume singing. But I personally don't think that's too likely, because the impression that I've got is that she's a very, very brilliant, competent live performer, so she's not likely to mess up, but it does open the door to that being a possibility. On a technical note, some of the longer, higher notes in the more powerful part of the chorus might be difficult for her to sing when the time comes to perform on the Junior Eurovision stage. I personally think she'll nail them and amaze everyone in the audience, but there is a risk, especially in the second Besoj, where she briefly goes higher and then comes back down again note-wise, that her voice might crack a little or she might miss the note by just a little bit, which would be very noticeable, but I don't think she'll mess that up, but it is worth noting as a slight possibility. Also, depending on your tolerance for this sort of thing, you might think that she says the word Besoj a little bit too much in the song. Personally, I think the song ends before it starts to feel too repetitive, but that is down to personal preference. You might think that she says Besoj way too much, and that's up to you, really. Now, scores out of 10. I'm going to be doing this a little bit differently from this year onwards, and this goes for adult Eurovision reviews as well. I'm going to give my score out of 10, as well as Laura's score out of 10 for the junior reviews, but also I'm going to give a technical score out of 10. So my personal score out of 10 is going to be based on my personal preferences, and the technical score out of 10 is going to be what I think the song deserves as a technical thing without any personal biases, but just on a cold, clinical, how does this work as a piece of music with no outside factors kind of. It'll make more sense once you see it in action. So first of all, Laura awards this a 7 out of 10, with the statement that it could be higher or lower depending on how they revamp it, or if they revamp it at all. We'll just see how it ends up getting performed on the night, what form the song takes once it's finalised and sent to the junior contest proper. But for the moment she gives it 7 out of 10. Now as for me, I don't want to sound like I'm a sucker for all things Eurovision, but I am going to give this one a 9 out of 10. I really, really do want to give it a 10, but for one, I gave too many songs 10 out of 10 in the adult Eurovision reviews from 2016, but that's not the only factor here. I also do worry about what might happen if they do revamp this song, because, after all, look at what happened to Aneda Tarifa at this year's adult Eurovision. They revamped the song, and it took away a lot of its power from the chorus, and I worry about that happening here. That said, if they revamp it and perhaps add more emphasis on the non-classical elements of the instrumentation without removing the classical instruments, I'd be very inclined to give it a full 10. So, it's a 9 from me at the moment, but it could easily be a 10 depending on if they don't revamp it or if they revamp it very well. And we'll see what happens, really. Now for the technical score out of 10, on a technical level, because of the classical instrumentation with the modern elements, and because of the power of her voice, weighed against the kind of minimalistic staging that this song would require, again, I think it earns a 9 out of 10, with a view to a perfect 10, again, depending on what changes come later in the year. As it is, it's a very strong song, although just by virtue of being a ballad and by needing not very over-the-top staging, it does present the risk of, instead of going over the top, it goes under the bottom. Because it's a ballad, even though it is a very, very well-written, well-performed ballad, it does risk alienating some members of the audience who may, just by virtue of being younger viewers, just have this natural preference for upbeat, less heartfelt songs that have more energy and more vivacious staging and energetic everything, you know, the sort of thing. Stuff like, for example, Not My Soul from last year. It's more upbeat, although in that case, it's not insincere, it is still heartfelt, but it has more energy to it, it's more bouncy, whereas this is a slightly slower paced ballad, which we'll see how people feel about it. There is genuinely no telling. So how does it compare to Albania's last effort at the Junior contest, which in this case came from 2015? Well, Europescalo8 says that while both songs are very good in their own ways, she feels that Dambaye was a lot more fun and memorable just to her personally. And as for me, I do agree with Laura on this one to an extent. Dambaye was immense fun, and it was very memorable as far as music and sentiment goes. Certainly once it received a revamp, anyway. But for me, I'm ruling in favour of Besoj personally. Dambaye was very nice in its own ways, and I don't dislike it. And yes, Besoj is a lot safer by comparison. It's less energetic, it's less unique sounding, in that, you know, it takes fewer risks. But Besoj absolutely blows me away in terms of its technical brilliance and Klesta's voice and everything. Not to mention, I was slightly disappointed in how Dambaye was staged last year because she just sort of stood there. Now, that would work with Besoj, but it didn't really work for Dambaye, but she had a really nice costume. Not that that makes up for it, I'm going on a slight tangent. The point is, I liked Dambaye, but I really like Besoj. It really, really impresses me. And I expect big things for Albania. They had a slight hiccup in 2012, but the two entries since then have been really strong contenders. We'll see what happens. So, overall, good show, Albania. Now, I would joke about, oh, will it qualify? This is the Junior contest. There are no semi-finals, and apparently there never will be, which is fine. So, let's just cut to the chase and say, good luck, Albania. You've got a really strong song that holds a lot of promise. I really look forward to seeing how it goes, so see you in Malta.